Okay, I can see us. We're live now. So we will call the regular meeting of council for June 22nd to order at 3 p.m. Oh, let me pause that. That's going to be a bad echo if I left that going. Okay, so adoption of the agenda. I'm going to ask the council adopt the agenda for the regular meeting of council for June 22nd, 2020 as amended to include the addition of the Notre Dame Scholarship as item 6.6. And I'll ask that from Councillor Moore, please.
I will make that motion.
And we will be doing consensus votes again, so unless anyone is opposed, motion carries. Adoption of the minutes. I'll ask for a motion from Councillor Masterman that council adopt the regular meeting of council minutes from June 8th, 2020 as presented.
I'll give you that motion, Mayor Snodgrass.
Thank you. I wasn't there, so by a consensus, everybody's good. Motion carries. Public comments, CAO or Kara, do you have any comments from the public?
There are no public comments.
Thank you very much. On to 5.1, strategic priorities, chart and work program. Off to Chris. Your mic is muted, I think.
Yeah, that's my fault. Sorry. Thank you, Mayor Snodgrass. Just wanted to provide this update to council about the updated strategic priorities chart and work program. With the onset of COVID pandemic in early March, we had a virtual strategic meeting at the end of March that reviewed some of the progress that's been made. And since then, more progress has been made. We were unfortunately not able to get together for a June meeting with everything that's been happening. So we had circulated this to council and through the senior leadership team and updated some of the numbers, or some, not the numbers, the tasks as well as the deadlines within the top 5 priorities. As you can see, there's been progress made. The Southwest berm is now being tendered and awarded, and construction is complete, slated for completion near the, in the middle part of October. And so that's well underway, and I think they might actually be ahead of schedule too. But they are proceeding quite quickly, and work's progressing quite smoothly on that project. The long-term water strategy, we will be presenting a council staff report about the literature review and some of the gaps, as well as the interim water policy that will be coming forward. We'll be having that conversation through an in-camera meeting in July. The one that was being really delayed is kind of the new business cases. Council may recall we had scheduled a site tour for a couple of similar-sized communities to take a look at their aquatic facilities and rec complexes, but with COVID, we had to delay that. And so the business case development is going to be put off until the end of this year. That we'll be framing that for council. The pedestrian bridge study for the crossing of the Highwood to the west. Funding application is being finalized, will be forwarded to council for authorization to proceed in July. And then one of the new ones that came up after our meeting in February about community development was a new website. The new website came to the surface of the top priority of council, and so we've awarded that contract, or the contract's being awarded in July. The RFP is actually out there right now, and we're getting a huge amount of interest from web contractors from that perspective to move forward with the new website. We anticipate that we'll have a new website by the middle part of November, and ready to launch at that point in time. That will fit the feel and taste that council had relayed on to us through our community development conversation. Other than that, everything else has been adjusted to reflect those new timelines. Dates have moved out. We've added a new community development section within the community chart because it was a priority of council, so it's on its own. That has several different priorities within it that will be assigned to a multitude of different people, from communications to community development coach, and as well as to myself. So based upon that, Your Worship, that's the rationale for the recommendation that's before council this afternoon. Bad habits are hard to die.
You're muted.
Craig, you're muted.
Blah, 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 blah. Councillor Masterman.
Hey, sorry, I couldn't get unmuted. Chris, this isn't directly related to your report, but I couldn't think of a better time to just mention that on the Museum of the Highwoods Facebook page today, there was a picture of the official opening of the Center Street Bridge in 1964. And so I know we were talking about a pedestrian bridge in your report, but just in case anybody's really wondering how old that bloody bridge is, and it's old, so.
No other questions for Chris? I will ask for a motion. 87 from Councillor McMillan that Council adopt the updated strategic priorities chart and work program dated June 16th, 2020 as presented.
I'll give you that motion.
Thank you. Via consensus, 2020 as presented.
I'll give you that motion.
Thank you. Motion is carried. Thanks very much, Chris. Item 6.1, land use bylaw amendment for cannabis facility out at the old airport.
All right. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. As Council is aware, a cannabis facility use has been proposed at 1801 109th Street Northeast. It's the former air hangar. The current cannabis bylaw does not define cannabis facility as either a permitted use or discretionary use in the Urban Reserve District. And Section 4.1.2H of the current land use bylaw states that the development authority cannot approve a use if it is not listed as a permitted or discretionary use in the district in which it is located. So amending the land use bylaw to allow cannabis facility as a discretionary use in the Urban Reserve District would permit administration to review and approve the current cannabis facility proposal at 1801 109th Street Northeast, as well as future proposals in the Urban Reserve District, as long as certain conditions were met. Since the Urban Reserve District does not allow any new buildings, there are only certain existing locations this use could be considered in the future. Staff would also make other minor adjustments to the cannabis bylaw, such as updating the cannabis counseling definition. This definition was questioned at a previous subdivision and development appeal board hearing, and minor changes to this definition could eliminate issues or confusion in the future. So administration recommends that Council direct administration to prepare a new cannabis bylaw that amends the land use bylaw by listing cannabis facility as a discretionary use in the Urban Reserve District, and that a public hearing for the new cannabis bylaw be scheduled for July 13th, 2020. Administration is also recommending that Council consider giving first, second, and third reading on July 13th, 2020 if there is no public feedback received. This would allow the current cannabis facility application to move forward in a timely manner while ensuring that any public feedback is first heard. Does anybody have any questions about that?
Councillor, thanks, Christine. Councillor Nychuk.
Thanks, Mayor Snodgrass. That was my concern, was timing on this. It was, I can't recall when this group came to us with their proposal, but my concern is holding up development through regulatory process. I'm glad to see that they're here, that you said, you'd give first, second, and third reading all in one shot on the 13th, but I just, in situations like this for developers and business, it's important that we move along as quickly as we can and not get it bogged down in bureaucracy and things. A little discouraged that it took us this long to get to this point for this potential business, but if that's the fastest timeline we can move it in. I guess it was more of a comment than a question, just to make sure we're moving along as expediently as we can. Thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Cooey.
Thanks, Mayor Snodgrass. And Christine, this question might not be for you. I'm just curious for those that might be tuning in either with us live or going forward, how will that public hearing look like? My understanding is we're not going back into council chambers. So just maybe so people understand how that might look and how they can best engage.
Yeah, and that might be a question. I see Kara's on the call. She might be able to help me answer it. It's my understanding that we're doing a Zoom meeting and that comments will have to be given before, previous, or prior to the public hearing. But yeah, Kara, if you can answer that, that'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So thank you so much for the question. So one of the main reasons that we're actually switching to Zoom is to allow for the public to join us in this virtual setting. So if there are individuals who are interested in participating as part of the public hearing, what they'll need to do is they'll head over to the Town of High River's website and they'll click on the public input tab, and it's on the council meetings page, which will take them to a page that will talk about the public hearing. And it will provide them with a form that's called the request to speak form, and they'll have to fill that out. They'll send that in to us, and we will send them the link to join the meeting at that time.
Thank you very much.
Darren, mute is going to get me all meeting. Councillor Kinghorn. And then
thanks, Craig. Or thanks, Mayor. I was going to step in there. I thought I was reading your lips, but cannabis facility isn't very descriptive to me, and I'm not sure what the rest of council feels, but I thought could we have a better term that describes exactly what this is out there? I think it's kind of nebulous when you just call it a cannabis facility. Not to hold up the process at all. I'd love to, I want to push this ahead just as much as the rest of council, but maybe a word that we could stick in there. Just a suggestion.
Yeah, I think when this bylaw was first, we were going off of municipalities, their definition. So I think cannabis facility, it kind of encompasses most of like anything to do with production, testing, storing, destroying product. But for this specific use, we could say in the notice of decision, specifically a micro growth facility, and be a little bit more specific when it comes to this specific application rather than in the amending bylaw.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Councillor Moore.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Snodgrass. I just wanted to bring up the fact that we have two public hearing scheduled for July 13th.
Is Kara still there?
Mayor Snodgrass, that's correct. We have one for the road closure behind the fire hall,
right,
as well as this one. And so for expediency, we felt putting them both together and using Zoom as the platform to try it, and doing the both on the same day, that we would be efficient from that perspective. So
okay,
that's the reason why.
Sounds good. And the fire hall one, that's a quick one. I think they're both going to be quick, but the fire hall one is a non-issue because it's about
Mayor Snodgrass and council, you can never predict with a public hearing.
I know, I probably just jinxed myself, but knowing that it's closing a road that doesn't exist, we should be okay.
Cross your fingers, cross your toes.
Okay, no further questions. Thanks, Christine. So let me get back here. 20. So I'll ask for a motion from Councillor Kinghorn, the council direct administration to prepare a new cannabis bylaw that amends land use bylaw 4510-2017 by listing cannabis facility as a discretionary use in the urban reserve district, and that a public hearing for the new cannabis bylaw be scheduled for July 13th, 2020.
Yes, Mayor Snodgrass, I will give you that motion.
Thank you. Any further comments? No hands are raised. By consensus, no one's opposed. Motion carried. Thanks, Christine.
Thank you.
Lease of municipal lands, item 6.2. Jody.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor and Council. Nice to see you all again virtually this afternoon. 2 years ago, almost to the day, Council provided direction to enter into a lease agreement with the Silverland Camp Society for the municipal lands located at 331 McLeod Trail Southwest, with a legal description as noted in the Council package. The purpose of the lease is to provide youth-based programs, specifically with Scouts Canada and Girl Guides, as well as other youth activities and programs that aligned with this intended use. The delay in bringing this back to Council was partly due to staffing changes at the leadership level at the town here. And we were also working with the Society's board meeting schedule, which did add a couple of delays. However, we recently came to an agreement on the terms and conditions of the lease as attached in your Council package. One change that is to be noted is that the lease rate is at $10 annually, where Council's resolution in 2018 indicated a rate of $1 annually. This change is to bring us into current economic practices as well as be consistent with our other agreements. These lands have been used by the Scouts for a number of years, since 1970, when an original lease was signed with Scouts Canada. And this new lease will allow for the lease to continue into the future and for the Society to proceed with an addition or new construction on the lands, as the current structure could use some attention. Administration recommends that Council approve the execution of the lease agreement with the Silverland Camp Society. And just wanted to thank you for your time, and let me know if there's any questions from Council.
Thanks, Jody. Well, as Geddy Lee said in the Strange Brew movie, you remember that? $10 is $10. No further comments? I got nothing. This one's pretty easy. So I'll get a motion from Councillor Nychuk that Council authorize Mayor and Chief Administration Officer to execute a lease with Silverland Camp Society for the lands located at 331 McLeod Trail, legally described as that, for a term of 25 years with an option to renew for an additional term of 25 years at a cost of $10 per year. And that the sole purpose of the facility and land to be used for the Scouts Canada, Girl Guides of Canada programs and other youth activities and programs that align with the values of the intended use. Councillor Nychuk, please.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make that motion for you.
By consensus, no one opposed. Motion carries. Thanks, Jody.
Thank you.
Capital budget amendment on the Center Street shallow utilities. Yeah.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. We are here today in regards to the Center Street shallow utility program involving the relocation of the overhead utilities that were along the original CP lands. The original capital budget was approved in 2019 for this project of $1.3 million based on its most current estimates. The funding available at this time is coming from the Gas Tax Fund grant program.
Since the time of the capital project budget was approved in 2019, there's been some unforeseen changes, such as the addition of the Walker's Western building. The services were added to the scope of the project. There's been some small design changes just to bring stuff to standard, as well as the cost for updating the services to the individual businesses was a bit more than we had originally anticipated. Due to refining the scope and that the times passed since the original estimate was received from the utility companies, we ended up asking the utility companies to resubmit their estimates. We've recently received those estimates, and some went up, some went down. There was a bit, depending on which company, there was a bit of a difference. There was an approximate overall increase of $51,000 for the project. This also includes a 10% contingency that was in addition to the building services portion, so that's in that 51,000. We're coming back to council to ask for approved budget increase of $1,000 to account for the estimate increases and to provide some contingency for the project. Because the original budget only allowed for a couple thousand dollars, a difference from what was estimated to what was approved for the capital budget. The challenges we're facing with this project is that it will affect the current progress on the Center Street project that's currently ongoing.
So administration is proposing that we ask for $100,000 to be taken from the gas tax fund. We're asking council to approve a budget amendment from the $1.3 million to the $1.4 million. Is there any questions?
Quick one. Christy, you mentioned about the timeline effect on the whole project. Do you have an idea as to what kind of effect?
It's more, my understanding is more the finishing work of the project, the sidewalks, the landscaping, and just the general end of it is my understanding.
Okay. Okay. Councillor Nychuk?
My follow-up to Mayor Snodgrass's question, his is on timing, mine's on the financial implications. If we're changing the timeline on the Center Street project, what does that mean financially? Because generally there's timelines written into contracts, and are we going to be having overage fees or anything like that?
You're talking about the underground project for Center Street? Yeah, so right now there hasn't been any project delays in relation to this, but if we prolong the approval of this budget or anything, then it could affect it down the road. We're getting to that point. We haven't hit that point that is delaying things yet.
Okay, thanks.
Councillor Cooey?
Thanks, Mayor Snodgrass. Just actually a kind of a technical question, Krista. You talked about in the report that we were not able to come up with an agreement to one of the landowners to the north. Does that, what does that impact? I was trying to understand what that meant, whether we were now having to bring the utilities across McLeod Trail, or was it across Center? Or did I totally read that map wrong? I'm just curious what the impact to that is.
Yes, for sure. I believe Tom is also on the call. He would have more information on that one.
It's not crucial. I was just curious. Oh, hi, Tom.
Yeah, hi. That's fine.
The project originally was going to end basically at 7-Eleven was the north end of it. There currently is an issue with Fortis's alignment that feeds 7-Eleven, and it basically goes across private property between Red Apple and the old Fast Gas.
Right.
So they weren't able, Fortis was not able to get an agreement with them. So what that did was it forced more of the project to the north and crossing McLeod Trail, at least for the power feed, if you will.
Okay, thanks. That's how I'd read it, but I just wasn't sure if I was understanding it correct.
Councillor Kinghorn?
Thank you, Mayor Snodgrass. I'm not sure if you can give me an answer on this, but I note that Shaw's fees went down by 140,000, and now TELUS is up by 90,000. I'm more interested in, did TELUS justify that increase? It's almost what we're asking for.
We didn't receive any justification for that. The thing with TELUS's quote too is that they're only going to charge based on what the materials are, the time and materials that they're actually going to do. There is a fluctuation in their number. It says they can add plus or minus 20% to their number. Another reason why we're asking for a little bit more than what the actual difference in the quotes are, just to kind of cover us in case it does go up higher. But right now, it could fluctuate about 20% is what TELUS is saying. They didn't give any indication on the specifics as to why it increased. I suspect it has something to do with time has gone by. Maybe the scope is a bit clearer now. But yeah, there's no breakdown specifically.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
This is me biting my tongue. Tell us. Bite me your tongue. Okay. No further questions.
Thank you all for your questions. They were good.
Thanks, Krista. Thanks, Leanna.
Thank you.
So I'll ask for a motion. The other part of this, the money, from what I'm seeing and what I've experienced over there, is when we do these projects and it's impacting this many businesses and along a strip like Center Street, we did a lot of work, whether it's with Walkers or with the Whistle Stop Cafe, and adjusting things so that things work properly, and we want it done right the first time so that it works good for their business. We can't just take the cheap way and just be dropping this stuff right at their doorstep. We have to work with these people, and when we do that, there's costs associated with it, because you go from the easy way of doing things to sometimes things get a little bit more difficult if we're going to move it, you know, to where that business kind of would rather have these, whether it's the transformer cubes or whatever it might be. So those always impact the cost of this thing. So, you know, can't just blame it all on TELUS, although I'd like to, but it's just working together with all these guys and making sure it's all done, because it's a massive project. It's an expensive project, and to spend another $100,000 to make sure that we look back at it in 5 years and know that we did it right and made all the right moves is very important. So, so from Councillor Moore, I will ask for a motion that council approve the capital budget amendment in the increase amount of $100,000 for Center Street shallow utilities project for a total of $1.4 million to come from the gas tax fund grant, and the council authorized the CAO to execute the agreements with Shaw and TELUS for utility work in the amount of $95,454 and $178,030 respectively. And the council authorized the CAO to execute the change order with Fortis for utility work in the amount of $180,413.99. And the council authorized the CAO to execute the contract with Volker Steven for shallow utility relocates tender in the amount of $173,000. Councillor Moore, please.
Thank you, Mayor Snodgrass. I will make those motions. There's 4 of them actually there.
Thank you. All in favor by consensus? Any questions? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. On to item 6.4, Assessment Review Board Joint Regional Agreement. Kara?
So good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Administration is recommending that Council consent to Rocky View County's request to join the Joint Regional Assessment Review Agreement. This agreement states that consent may not be unreasonably withheld, and administration is not aware of any reason why we should withhold consent at this time. There's no financial implication as a result of this recommendation, as the town only pays when we utilize this service. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Minor housekeeping detail, Councillor Moore.
Yeah, speaking of minor housekeeping details, in the fourth, whereas consent shall not be reasonably withheld, it should be unreasonably withheld. I'm just I'm trying to be careful for the meeting.
Okay, I'll ask for a motion from Councillor Masterman, please. The council, on behalf of the town of High River, give consent for Rocky View County to be added to the ARB Joint Regional Agreement.
I'll make that motion, Mayor Snodgrass.
Yep. All in favor by consensus? One opposed? Motion is carried. Thanks, Kara. Community Futures, back to Kara.
Yes, thank you. So administration is recommending that council designate Councillor McMillan as the voting designate for the annual general meeting for Community Futures. Councillor McMillan was the voting designate last year, and given that the town can only have one voting member as per the bylaws, we're recommending that Councillor McMillan be reappointed this year. Are there any questions?
No. So I will ask for a motion from Councillor McMillan on my list, but we better not do that. I'll ask for a motion from Councillor Cooey.
I'll give you that motion, Mayor Snodgrass.
Thank you very much. That Councillor Carol McMillan is the Town of High Rivers voting designate at the June 25th, 2020 Community Futures Highwood Annual General Meeting. So from Councillor Cooey, all in favor via consensus. Motion is carried. On to item 6.6, Notre Dame Collegiate Scholarship. Kara?
So administration has received a request from Notre Dame Collegiate for council to determine who the lucky recipient is of a $1,000 scholarship. We are putting forward Cade Baldwin as the recommended choice for council's consideration.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from council? None. I will ask for a motion from Councillor McMillan. It's back here.
I'll give you that motion.
Okay, the council award the scholarship for Notre Dame Collegiate to Cade Baldwin in the amount of $1,000 upon proof of enrollment in a post-secondary institution, and that council direct administration to review the awards and recognition policy and associated procedure and return to a future committee of the whole meeting. Thank you, Carol. All in favor? Comments? Councillor Masterman?
Thank you, Mayor Snodgrass. I just wanted to point out, and I think I'm probably speaking for all of us here, that there were several names that were presented to us, and each one of them would have been a very worthy recipient. And with this caliber of young people in this community, I just have to say we're in very great shape, and very proud of all of them. So, thanks so much.
Thanks, Councillor Masterman. All in favor to the motion via consensus? Motion is carried. Okay, the final one. Kara, are you still on with this one? This AUPE request?
So this isn't actually our request. This is just a request that has come in to council, and council can choose whether they want to act upon it or not. There's no requirement at this time.
Okay, I'll give you my 2 bits. Although I may agree with what's in the letter of the Alberta Union of Provincial Employees, some of it anyways, I do not feel that this is council's position to be lobbying for a union to the provincial government. They can do their own work up there. So that's a messy road to go down for a municipality to be getting on board with a union of any kind. That's a personal thing that we can all do if we choose to do it through our personal avenues to advocate to our MLA. If that's what you want to do, knock your socks off, but I do not believe it should be happening here. Everybody looks like I'm getting head nods, so it looks like we're all in agreement. So we don't even need to make a motion. Thanks very much for the letter, AUPE. Council correspondence for information, it's all listed there. So any final questions or comments from council? Nothing. Good to go. Thank you very much. Meeting adjourned at 3:35 p.m. Thank you.